today to the webinar 189th since the Horas Konu started the webinar cycle in May 2020. It's been 3.5 years now of continuous learning. Today, it is a pleasure to talk about the first World Summit on Traditional Medicine organized by the WHO. And so about this topic, the Notisalud Andina newsletter number 79 issue will include information about this. You can find it on the Orascon website. And the title of this new newsletter is Ancestral and Traditional Knowledge and Knowledge Diversity. So the originary peoples that with pride and privilege we are preserved in the Andean countries have been the guardians of water, air, plants, species, all of them, and also of the territory, and that they have millennial knowledge, which is essential and is key for the interconnection culture with nature to understand the universe. So we invite you to read our newsletter. And also, we would like you to write in the chat box your name, the organization, and country where you're from. You can do it on YouTube Live or Facebook Live. In the same box, you can ask your questions. You can text them, or you can email them to webinar.orasconu@gmail.com. In this webinar, we are going to do the same dynamics as we always do. We will first do the official greeting. Afterwards, we will have the presentations by our keynote speakers, and then we will have a Q&A round. In order to access to the certificate of participation, as usual, you will find a link in the chat box of Facebook Live or YouTube Live. You click on that link and you will need to fill out a brief form. And please make sure that all of the information that you write on that form is correctly written so that we can send the certificate. In order to start this important day, I will give the floor to Dr. Maria del Carmen Calle Davila, Executive Secretary of the Andean Health Organization, Orasconu, who will give the welcome and the official greeting. Thank you, Berta. It is really a joy to me to welcome you to webinar number 189, titled First World Summit of the WHO on Traditional Medicine, Towards Health and the Well-Being of Everyone. The Andean Health Organization Hipólito Unanue Agreement, or Orasconu, was created by ministerial decision in Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Venezuela in December 1971. Our vision is that in 2030, the dwellers of the Andean region will enjoy the right to health and well-being. Inequalities have been reduced, and there is a greater capacity, response capacity to the health challenges, social economic challenges, and the environmental challenges through integration and regional cooperation. Our work is done as with partner organizations. We do it through 22 Andean committees, 2 subcommittees, 8 task forces, 1 Andean network of health communicators, and also the intersectorial Andean Roundtable to fight inequalities in health. All of them are made up by representatives of the ministries of health of all 6 Andean countries. One of the Andean committees is called Intercultural Health, and 2 of these subcommittees are called Maternal Health with an intercultural approach and the Health of Afro Descendants, with which we work to achieve the expected outcomes of the Andean policy on intercultural health. The strategic lines of these Andean policy on intercultural health are capacity building of human resources with an intercultural approach in health, recognition, protection, and strengthening of traditional medicine, development of mechanisms that will allow for the articulation information systems to research on intercultural health, mainstreaming of the intercultural approach in the framework of social determinants of health and health programs, strategic partnerships, and social participation in the development of policies, strategies, and actions. Likewise, based on a collective work, we have performed studies such as the following, and that are actually posted on the website of Orasconu. Medicinal plants of the Andean subregion, which we will update next year. Situational analyses of the health of originary peoples. Diagnosis of populations in isolation and initial contact. Analysis of the legal framework in Andean countries to protect and promote inclusion of traditional medicine into the health systems. Model of care that is aimed at prevention and control of tuberculosis in the Aymara population in the triple border between Bolivia, Chile, and Peru. In the Andean region, the indigenous, Afro-descendant, and originary peoples advocate, take care of, and promote a good life by means of their ancestral knowledge and practices. That's why we really celebrate that the first World Summit on Traditional Medicine was conducted, and it was organized by the government of India and the World Health Organization in August this year. It is a key step in recognizing the traditional ancestral knowledge. Today, we will have extremely knowledgeable keynote speakers, and we will analyze the potential and applications of traditional medicine amidst the major challenges and opportunities that we have in order to achieve well-being of the people and the planet. Welcome, Cristina Romanelli and Vivian Camacho. Welcome, Olivier Rukundo, and welcome everybody who is joining us today and who recognize and acknowledge traditional medicine and ancestral knowledge. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Dr. Mari Carmen Calle. After our official greeting, I would like to introduce myself first. Berta Luz Pineda, I'm a social scientist, coordinator of climate change and inequalities within the Orasconu. And today I will be the moderator of this webinar. So after this first portion, we would like to welcome Olivier Rukundo. Olivier is the head of the unit of Peoples and Biodiversity at the Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity, where he supervises and monitors all of the work in programming dealing with traditional knowledge and the working group on Article 8 and related provisions. Before, he also was the officer of the program of the Secretariat, albeit as of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Before he came back to the Secretariat, he was the senior specialist on juridical issues for the International Treaty of the United Nations for agriculture and food, and also on phytogenic resources for food and agriculture. Dear Oliver, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? Yes, I trust that interpretation is also on. So thank you very much for the invitation. It's really a great pleasure to be with you here. I am joining from, as introduced, from the Secretariat of the Internet of the Convention on Biological Diversity, where I deal with issues of traditional knowledge. Now, let me just very quickly sort of contextualize. The Secretary of the Convention was invited to provide input during the World Summit on Traditional Medicine organized by WHO. I must say that we have a close collaboration between WHO and the CBD in matters related to biodiversity and health, and we work very closely with our colleague, Christina Romanelli, one of the colleagues of the WHO, so that's the context of the invitation. What I'm going to address today is basically the topic that concerns us today, is to give you a bit of a reflection as to where the connections are between health and traditional knowledge, the interface between traditional medicine and traditional knowledge, and some of the issues that we're dealing with at the Convention on Biological Diversity as regards to those topics. So as you all know, traditional knowledge holds a rich wisdom, information about diverse use of plants, seeds, animals, and ecosystem for medicinal purposes. And conservation of and sustainable use of biodiversity often depend on these practices. And of course, at the core of the work of the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, is the protection and preserving biodiversity to ensure the availability of plant and resources for future generations. Now, what we have at the Convention on Biological Diversity is a new framework, which is what we call the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So the framework was adopted 6 months ago at the 15th Conference of the Parties in Montreal here, and it aims to halt and reverse biodiversity loss through urgent and transformative action. Of course, the framework aligns with the conventions of the CBD in terms of its objective. With regards to the connections, and I think this is where we need to sort of focus on here, is traditional knowledge in this global biodiversity framework is recognized. Section C of the framework provides that the framework acknowledges the importance of respecting, documenting, and preserving traditional knowledge. It emphasizes the significance of free and informed consent, free and prior informed consent, and the full and effective participation of Indigenous people and local communities. With regards to its targets, the framework also stresses the necessity of making the best available data, information, knowledge, including traditional knowledge, accessible to decision-making. And it also, again, emphasizes that access to traditional knowledge should only take place with the free, prior, informed consent of Indigenous people and local communities. We also have Goal 3 and Target 13, which deals with issues related to the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the utilization not only of genetic resources, but traditional knowledge. With regards to where we are now in the process, we are developing, under the auspices of the convention, a new program of work on Article 8J, which is an article in the convention that deals with the innovation practices of Indigenous people and local communities, and of course, their traditional knowledge. And we are now in the process of developing a new program of work, which has basically two phases. One was the NADOC technical group of experts that took place in Manaus, Brazil, a few months ago. And then in November, mid-November, we will be in Geneva, actually in a work in the 12th working group of the Article 8J, discussing how this new program of work will look like, what will be the elements, and of course, we are looking at the interface between what we do at the convention and other cross-cutting issues such as health, the intersection between sort of biodiversity, health, biodiversity, agriculture, biodiversity, and other sectors. And all of this has to be aligned with the new framework. Now, I think it's important to sort of make the nexus between what we're discussing today and the work of the convention. In that, traditional knowledge, as we see it, which is innovation and practices of indigenous and local communities, is actually something that has value, has intrinsic value. And one of the key nexus here, as regards to what is being discussed within the prism of traditional medicine, is actually how to look into ways in which data information in relation to traditional knowledge, in particular in the field of the health sector, can be recognized and to some degree equated to scientific knowledge. So this is one of the key core discussion points that we have broadly with regards to traditional knowledge, but it extends really easily and readily to the issue of health and how traditional medicine and traditional knowledge over health-related issues can be equated to conventional scientific medical knowledge that is out there and abundant. And for this, there are some work that needs to, of course, be done. I mean, the main body for this would be the WHO, but of course, at the CBD, we're looking also at indicators and way in which we can help through our various partner in terms of capacity building and awareness raising to make sure that the traditional knowledge of indigenous people and local communities are recognized to their core value. Now, we will, as I said, have this meeting in November where the new program of work will deal with this particular issue. And there's another issue that I'd like to touch upon now, which is the issue of access to funding. Of course, when we talk about traditional knowledge, the recognition of its value, the fact that traditional knowledge should be considered as equal or at least as a co-creation knowledge, there are issues of access to resources that come into play. So in very recently, a few weeks ago, the Global Environmental Facility, which is the GEF at its 7th assembly, adopted what is called the GBF Fund, which is the Global Biodiversity Fund, which is actually a fund that was created by the GEF to support the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework. It has so far generated a pledge of 210 million from basically 2 countries, Canada and the UK. And the aim is to reach the 500 million threshold for its operation to begin and for the trust fund to be established under the aegis of the World Bank. What it means, though, for the questions that are concerning us today, is that this fund is particular because it recognizes the special role of traditional knowledge and indigenous people and local communities, and has actually in its operation design been decided to allocate 20% or at least 20% of its funding to a special window that actually would deal with issues of related to traditional knowledge, but also, broadly speaking, the rights of indigenous people and local communities. So this fund, once it's operational and under sort of the fiduciary operation of the World Bank, will be a great asset in terms of providing resources for traditional knowledge holders to value and create means in which they can preserve and enhance the effectiveness of their traditional knowledge. So we're very, very, very happy about this development. And we really do hope that once this fund is operational, we'll be collaborating with entities such as the WHO to find ways and means to sort of collaborate in terms of capacity building, but also in terms of like resource availability, access to funding, to leverage further funding for traditional knowledge. So I wanted to end my presentation here. And of course, I'll be very happy to answer any questions that you may have as regards to the topic at hand. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, estimado.
Thank you very much, dear Olivier. So you talked about the CBD and how it recognizes the importance of preserving the ancestral knowledge. One of the articles that incorporates and then also in terms of thinking about innovation, also you talk about recognizing ancestral knowledge also equated to scientific knowledge, and the necessity and the need of working to develop more evidence, to have capacity building, and also the need of having more resources and access to funds. Well, thank you very much. We've been getting some comments. Congratulations to the speaker. Well, we have one question, and this question is, if during the work that you are doing, have you considered the evidence of the benefits that traditional medicine provides to mental health? How is this related, the traditional knowledge and ancestral knowledge with mental health? Or have you seen any evidence that it provides benefits? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, it's a very good question. It opens the discussion to actually how it should be dealt with. Under the convention, we don't just talk about just traditional knowledge. We talk about traditional knowledge, innovation, and practices of indigenous people and local communities. It means it encompasses the whole spectrum of knowledge. And we do work with communities and indigenous people that actually have knowledge over various areas of medicinal practice, including the mental health that is mentioned in the question. So for sure, this is something that falls within the ambit of the work of the convention when it relates to traditional knowledge. And in fact, as we speak, we've been actually monitoring cases of the use of traditional knowledge, and health accounts to roughly 30% of the cases that are documented in our work at the CBD. And of course, that spans from all kinds of health-related issues, and mental health is one of those. I'm very glad that you asked the question also, because this is an issue that affects increasingly communities and indigenous people. And certainly this is something that can actually be further worked on in collaboration with the WHO to maybe at some further point, when we have information and data to catalog this information, to really see where exactly the health-related dimension of traditional knowledge fits into what is actually provided to us as information, and precisely what can we do as the convention to help the holders of such knowledge.
Muchas gracias. Y le voy a...
Well, thank you very much. So I would ask another question. There's another question, actually. What kind of research lines you think are unattended and neglected, and is necessary to prioritize from the from your office? What do you think should be given more attention to and is not really being cared for in terms of research?
Yes. Thank you very much for the question again. From the point of view of where I'm sitting, everything needs attention. And I'm saying this, of course, not lightly, in the sense that with the adoption of the Global Biodiversity Framework, we've had very sustained and increased and enhanced attention to issues of the rights of indigenous people and local communities. One of the issues that is actually coming up here is in regards to the human rights aspect related to the rights of indigenous people and local communities. So it means that for the first time within the CBD, we have, of course, we have the convention that deals with the three objectives: conservation, sustainable use, and the third objective, which is more on access and benefit sharing. But in terms of the interface between the CBD and human rights bodies, there has been, let's say, if you will, not so much emphasis on that issue, since other bodies are dealing with it. But now, with regards to the framework and recognizing the human rights-based approach, recognizing that environmental defenders have rights that need to be defended. I think this is an area of work that actually deserves further research and attention on how to integrate it within the broader implementation of the CBD. I would also just mention that I think it's important to have a holistic view of the implementation of the CBD. The CBD and the Global Biodiversity Framework is a whole of a society, whole of a government approach. And I think we need to pay attention to all the issues equally, because for the first time, we have a framework that actually asks us to implement the convention in a way that integrated with other sectors. So there will be other non-traditional issues that will have the effect of coming into force, so that we'll have to focus on that go beyond our traditional focus with regards to the, conservation, sustainable use, and access and benefit sharing.
Estimado Olivier, muchas gracias.
Well, thank you very much, Olivier, for your presentation. We have gotten a lot of congratulations for you for, all the actions that you mentioned and everything that you shared with us. So thank you. And also, I would like to also congratulate you for talking about human rights and how, the human rights of originary indigenous peoples is important, because this is also one of the key issues that ORAS CONU deals with. So thank you very much for that.
It is my great pleasure to be with you. And again, thank you very much for the invitation. In terms of follow-up, I understand that you have a newsletter. So I will be sending you some write-ups that you may wish to share with the participants. And again, thank you very much. I'm very honored to have participated here. Thank you also to Christina for having made the link, and other speakers, Viviana, that I had the pleasure to meet with in India. And I really salute you for the efforts that you're undertaking. And this is the work that we will be willing to support, very eager to continue following. And I myself will do my best to champion your work. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
A continuación, le damos la más cordial bienvenida a Cristina Romanelli.
So now we would like to welcome Cristina Romanelli. She's the focal point for diversity, climate change, and health at the WHO. Cristina has over 20 years of experience in evaluation and development of policies, the participation of different stakeholders, training, capacity building, and interdisciplinary research in terms of the intersection of biodiversity, conservation, global health and public health, climate change, and health, and One Health. She has provided scientific advisory and political advisory in the different scientific research contexts and regulatory compliance. Before she went to hold her current position, she was also part of the WHO, and she managed the joint work of the WHO on biodiversity and health with the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD, since it was established in 2012. She has also led some training workshops. She has served as an expert, especially on capacity building. She's the main translator for the Intergovernmental Platform of Political Sciences on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. She has been the main author, main coordinator of the revision of the state-of-the-art of biodiversity and health that was led by the WHO, and also helped develop the single guide for biodiversity. She's also the focal point of biodiversity of WHO for the and the coordinator of the expert group of WHO on biodiversity, climate change, public health, and nature-based solutions. Dear Cristina, you have the floor. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Bertha, for, well, after this introduction, there's nothing I can say. So this, I will try to do this presentation in Spanish. I am sorry ahead of time if maybe I don't find the right words, because I usually work more in English at the WHO. But well, thank you very much. Thank you, Olivier, and thank you, Vivian, and thank you to the Orasconu for giving these introductory words. It is really a pleasure to be here with you in this dialogue and discussion to explore a few challenges and opportunities that stemmed from the First World Summit on Traditional Medicine organized by the WHO, and also the Declaration of Gujarat resulting from the summit that took place in Gandhinagar in India on August 17th and 18th. And this also coincided with the meeting of the G20 meeting on with the ministers of health. So before going and delving into one of the details of the Declaration of Gujarat, I propose to give you a few bases of the whole journey that opened up a few dialogue and discussion opportunities, and they were discussed in the First World Workshop on Biodiversity, Traditional Knowledge, and Health, and this took place in Rio de Janeiro in July as a preamble to the summit that took place in August. And so these were a few days where we had very, very rich exchange of information, and then that ended up in a draft of detailed recommendations. And these recommendations were then transferred to the World Summit on Traditional Medicine. And so from now on, we will also have the opportunity of fine-tuning these recommendations and implementing these recommendations. So before the summit at the WHO, we recognized that traditional medicine is obviously this whole array of healing practices that come from everywhere in the world, and that it is profoundly intertwined in the culture of many civilizations and in the management and sustainable use of biodiversity. But and so far, all of these practices have not been integrated in the work of the WHO. And of course, it definitely serves as a fulcrum for the medical care of millions of people. And definitely, it is the indigenous peoples that develop this. And so I really hope that in today's discussions, we can also think about this context, specific context of the importance and the value of these traditional ancestral knowledge and how it is related to traditional medicine, instead of just talking about what we talked about during the summit. So, and I think this was also shown by our first speaker, Olivier, who is a colleague from the CBD. The Declaration of Gujarat says that this does not exist in isolation. This is extremely rooted and based on policies and legislative instruments, and even the Declaration of Amati in 1978 that advocated for the, for primary care of health, and the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD, which also ended up in 1992 with the creation of the convention, and also talking about using biodiversity in a sustainable way, in agreement with the conservation of traditional territories of originary and indigenous peoples, based on Article 8J, as was mentioned by Olivier, but also thinking about the Nagoya Protocol, the Nagoya Protocol,
the access and benefit sharing of genetic resources, que desafortunadamente no sé, no sé decir en inglés. Así como el reconocimiento
and also the recognition of the United Nations recognition of the rights to self-determination and control of the territories. And this is also a key aspect that has been discussed during the summit, and also thanks to the presence of indigenous peoples during the summit. They were also there. So if we talk about the Declaration of Gujarat, the declaration recognizes very explicitly the nexus and connections to these conventions, and recognizing at the same time, and I have to say that this is not very common during the, the WHO fora, but it recognized that we are all interconnected, not only as human beings, but also with the land itself and the earth. And if we are thinking about the health of people and the health of the earth, it definitely is interconnected, and we're all interconnected. And so this is nothing new, of course, for the indigenous populations, but for organizations like the WHO, this more holistic vision and global vision is actually new territory. It's something that they have not reaffirmed before. So during this summit, we have had the opportunity, and also during the previous workshop in Rio de Janeiro, we heard in Manaus, sorry, we heard a lot of examples about these interconnections, and we heard from different countries and the different peoples in the Americas. And without, going further, we heard examples about the Amazon example in Brazil, for instance, where the indigenous communities depend on the rainforest not only for their livelihood, but also as a way of getting primary care, primary health care. So preserving the rainforest not only protects their livelihoods and their lifestyles, but also it safeguards the global ecosystem. And that means how important it is to protect the knowledge of the indigenous and originary peoples, and also to protect the environment. So it is clear that the indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge, all of the topics that were discussed during the summit, are actually ways of living for millions of people, but even more important for isolated communities, or the ones that are more vulnerable ones to climate change and the loss of biodiversity, and that sometimes they don't have mechanisms of protection, and the same mechanisms, social mechanisms of protection. So for a lot of people that, we can be talking about 80% of people in some of the communities, traditional medicine is not just an alternative option, but actually it is the primary and preferred way of care. And even then, we have seen and we know that there is an opportunity to have a better integration between, what we call modern medicine, if you wish, and traditional medicine. Maybe it is not the right term, but just to make a difference between both types of medicine, right? And so greater integration, and we can start seeing this in some countries. And so, for instance, we saw in the workshop that we had in Mexico the use of traditional medicine that is rooted in Aztec and Mayan traditions, and they coexist with modern medicine, and they provide the patients with different options while they face the challenges at the same time. They face the challenges of continuing and preserving the traditional knowledge. So we have seen that this knowledge, this is extremely valuable. And they have done incredible contributions to the to modern medicine, and they have been the basis of awards. And one of the examples that we heard also during the summit was the artemisinin in the treatment of malaria, and that was an award-winning component, because artemisinin was considered that it was very effective against all malaria-causing organisms, and then this led to other recognitions. And so definitely, just to say, this is just an example that all the contributions are definitely incredibly valuable, incredibly important. But also, in terms of challenges, there are many difficulties around the world and technical issues and challenges for the WHO to really contribute to having a complement, to have them both complement both the traditional and the modern medicine. And I think one of the main challenges is maybe in the mandate of the WHO, because the WHO is the main agency, the main health agency of the United Nations, and as such, they have the mandate of applying methods that are recognized as scientific and methods to support those member states. And they also have the obligation of ensuring the effective, safe, and equitable use of indigenous knowledge. So we need to strengthen, and let's see, we need to have a greater recognition of the scientific value of the traditional knowledge, so that we can definitely see that we can see them just as important as the knowledge of modern medicine, so that they can also be recognized as scientific methods and methods that have scientific rigor. And this actually was mentioned and discussed quite a few times during the summit that we had in India. And then another challenge that we found includes the obligation of ensuring safety of the people. And so as the WHO, this is something that can be seen as key in it's a principle that it is non-negotiable and it has to be there. And even in the practice of traditional medicine and the value of traditional medicine, it does not always come recognized as a secure thing, because sometimes it comes and it's seen as that there is a lack of standards. And even though in some systems we see that these standards, safety standards, are integrated into the development of these traditional knowledge, but in the workshop that we had in Brazil was actually how they had developed the standards for some of the knowledge in their country. And so now, I'm talking about some of the challenges, but then there were also a lot of opportunities. The first one is that we now have opened the door to dialogue, a dialogue that never took place really before in history. And this is absolutely fundamental and necessary, that, we have. And so it's the opportunity to be able to rethink the models, the political models and economic models. And so that makes us prioritize the well-being, promoting health in a more holistic way, equality, and financial inclusion and financial promotion. Another opportunities that the Gujarat Declaration also talks about an agenda of action. And they are evidence-based to back universal health coverage. And as I said before, we cannot underestimate the importance of evidence-based approaches. But if we open up these dialogues, if we start discussing about this, it's an opportunity to show that there is scientific rigor behind this knowledge, behind such important knowledge, traditional knowledge. The declaration, and Olivier talked about this, the declaration can also help us in mobilizing new resources for research and for the implementation. And that is very important. Remember what happened with the Global Environment Facility, and that a part of those funds, as Olivier mentioned, a percentage of these funds will necessarily go to be allocated to the promotion of traditional knowledge and for the promotion of traditional medicine. And so it will definitely help. And then the dialogues as the one we had during the summit is important to mobilize this awareness and to raise public awareness about this topic. We also highlighted the issue of cultural conservation. And so from now on, anything that is done in the world about traditional medicine cannot consider cannot be done without considering the participation of indigenous peoples. And those elements are also very new and very important because we already have a strategy about traditional medicine in the last World Assembly on Health. There was a call to renew this strategy, and now we are going to see something different because we will have channels of communication with indigenous peoples to make sure that there is better integration. Another opportunity is having this more holistic approach. And this holistic approach, it is not only because it is based on this issue of the health of the planet, but it is also thanks to the integration of indigenous communities and the participation of indigenous communities in the summit. It is thanks to that we were able to strengthen a more holistic approach. And then also, the declaration also insisted on respecting the custody of the knowledge and resources by the originary peoples, and it calls for a respectful commitment and a respectful exchange of the knowledge, of the ancestral knowledge. And then I will mention maybe just a few items, because I think that I'm running out of time. The big opportunities we have in terms of biodiversity and traditional knowledge. The declaration asked for the CBD, the convention, to be applied. And also, Olivier mentioned this very briefly, but we can also talk about this if there is any question. The world, the framework, and this was just finished in December last year as a global agreement recognized as very ambitious, one of the most ambitious in the history of environmental governance. And it should also be promoted and take measures and the necessary steps to safeguard and manage biodiversity in a sustainable way, but also to ensure the equitable and fair sharing of the benefits that are derived from the use of biodiversity and the genetic material that is related to the indigenous knowledge. And so that is also part of that declaration. And maybe the most important opportunity, I think, is that it was recognized that we needed to ensure the full participation and prior consultation of indigenous peoples, and even through the establishment of a mechanism, a formal mechanism for high-level consultation to the indigenous peoples. And why it is important? Why is this important? It is very important because it opens up the dialogue, because we have two strategic plans that we are preparing. One on traditional medicine, and we already talked about this before, but also in the last Worldwide Health Assembly, there was a they talked about consultation. So after the creation of these mechanisms, we can ensure that these plans are not plans that are going to be created in isolation by the WHO or the member states, but they are these are co-created and they are developed in a more participative way. Well, so far that's it. And I'm sorry because I've had some difficulties in expressing maybe my ideas. So I don't know if there are questions. And well, especially I also want to hear your reflections about the opportunities that we could have from now on. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, querida Cristina. Han llegado muchos comentarios.
Thank you. Well, we've gotten a lot of comments. Congratulations for your excellent presentation. And so you started talking about the background and the summit on traditional medicine, and you talked about the contribution of traditional medicine. These are extremely valuable. This is extremely valuable knowledge, and it should not be taken in isolation. It recognizes the coexistence with other conventions, and it recognizes the interconnection between us and our Mother Earth. We are all interconnected, and we know that the indigenous peoples, Afro-descendant, they all know this very well. You talked about the opportunities and the challenges also, and I just want to talk about one of them, which is the challenge of having a greater recognition of the scientific value of traditional knowledge. And for that, it is fundamental to maintain dialogue and looking at a holistic view and planet health. Your Spanish was excellent. We understood very well. Thank you, dear Cristina. And so now we would like for you to ask that you stay here so that we can listen to Vivian's presentation, and then maybe we can have a dialogue between both of you, if that's okay.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. A continuación, con mucho
Next, we will like to give the welcome, the warmest welcome to Vivian Camacho. She's the General Director of Traditional Medicine of the Ministry of Health in Bolivia.
De la región de las Américas para la Organización Panamericana. Coordinadora de Salud de los Pueblos en Bolivia, es representante para la región andina de la Coordinación Latinoamericana dentro del Movimiento Mundial por la Salud de los Pueblos. Partera quechua, promotora del parto respetado y partería ancestral, magíster en agroecología y cultura y desarrollo endógeno en Latinoamérica. También es promotora de salud popular junto a comunidades campesinas, comunicadora indígena, integrante de la red Avia Yala de comunicación indígena, es médica cirujana, especialista en interculturalidad y salud, promotora de saberes ancestrales de los pueblos indígenas, integrante del Centro de Investigaciones para Pueblos Indígenas, Nuestro Sur, y con mucho orgullo también decimos que es punto focal de la Mesa Andina Intersectorial de Concertación contra las Desigualdades del Organismo Andino de Salud, representando al Ministerio de Salud de Bolivia y del Comité Andino de Salud Intercultural. Muchas gracias, querida Vivi. Adelante, por favor.
Muchas gracias,
Well,
Bertita.
thank you very much, Berta. Thank you for this introduction, and thank you to the Orasconu for giving us the opportunity to share our voices and our reflections. Also, Dr. Mari Carmen Calle, thank you very much, because the work that you are doing, it shows as public policies that have to get to our territories. Also, a big greeting to anyone who's joining us from other countries. Chris and Olivier, also thank you very much, and a big hug. I have prepared a few slides to share with you, and well, because of the connectivity that is not really so good, I will turn off the camera, but you will listen to me, and then I will also be turning on the camera again when I'm done, so that we can have this discussion and dialogue afterwards. I understand that we are being translated into English, and so a big greetings from La Paz, Bolivia, the highest city in the world. And so I have been called by the World Health Organization, and also I have been called to represent Bolivia in the World Summit of Ancestral Medicine in India and Gujarat. This year I was there. It was such a joy. That's why I am including here a plant. It's a seed that has grown, and I really hope that this also grows after we are, working on this. We're always, working together, talking about together, saying that health is a human right. Health is not a commodity. And this is one of the most important things that we need to think about when anybody wants to privatize the health care, because health as a human right has to be respected. But it's not only that, but definitely when we talk about food and healthy food, that also has to be considered. So even though the states guarantee these or not, this is also part of the struggle of peoples and what they have been doing and defending and advocating for these rights. And then also we are talking about the social determinants of health, because for our people it means dignity and social justice. If we do have populations that are hungry, that do not have water, that do not have any contact or access to education, they don't have access to health services, and there's peoples that are suffering from violence, racism, there's people that are suffering from different situations of social injustice, we don't have health then. And so this, we fight for the right of health, and that has to do with social justice that our peoples are demanding. But then also we need to look at what are we looking at, what is the vision, and that's why we have the Western macro culture that imposes different systems of health and consumption. And actually, when we talk about capitalism and neoliberalism, they have imposed a very sadly commoditized, inhumane medicine that is only thought of for a commodity and consumption oriented medicine. But when we talk about traditional medicine, we need to get out of that paradigm. So just to understand that we're millions of human beings that come from different cultures, and that we are healing with our own ancestral knowledge. In Bolivia, we have the Sumampaisai, which is I show you the picture of Cayaguayas, which is Sumay and Causay. And this is for the and that's where quinine and chloroquine and all of the derivatives. This is a historical picture that shows the contribution of the originary peoples to conventional and pharmaceutical medicine. And so we definitely need to remember that our peoples have had these tools for many thousands of years. And actually our name, Bolivia, is also recognized as Coya Suyo. Coya is medicine herb, and Suyo is people. So we are the land of the healers. And with this very beautiful pictures representing my Kayawaya people, the Kayawaya people is recognized currently as World Heritage by UNESCO. And so these people has been recognized because of the depth of and the profound knowledge that they develop. But just like the Kayawaya peoples, we have 36 indigenous people that have their own knowledge, ancestral knowledge, and ways of being in the world. Obviously, plants and herbs and the different ecological tiers and the different regions that come with biodiversity. And this is in Bolivia, but also we have our own cultural identity that has to do with music, spirituality, and also with the agricultural calendar and thanking Mother Earth and the spirituality that our peoples have preserved. And so it is important to talk about decolonization of health and deep. And these are the challenges that we have right now in history. Decolonization, because it is going back to remembering our ancestral knowledge and everything that is alive. And there's peoples that have been colonized. Can you slow down? Because we are being interpreted into English. Thank you, Berta. So in peoples that have been colonized like mine, we need to go back to our own territories, because we have seen that our wise men have been persecuted, and our knowledge, they have been criminalized, and even though they are still alive. And so we need to decolonize, and to decolonize is going back to this ancestral knowledge. It is alive. We need to acknowledge and preserve it for the next generations. And then we also need to remove the patriarchy. As women, we have been also removed from our knowledge. Midwives, knitters, and women who have been guarding the territory. And so it is necessary to go back to this fight, because we still are listening to hatred and to fascists, racists, and they belittle us as women and even more as indigenous women. I belong to the Quechua people in Bolivia, and even then we still face this kind of situations. And so we need to talk about decolonization, and decolonization of health is going back to our dignity, the dignity of our knowledge and our history. Our cycles of human life are very much related to the cycles of the universe. And this is remembered by the peoples, the cycles of the sun, of the moon, of harvesting and crops and the rains and dry seasons and wet seasons. All of these periods are ceremonial. All of these periods are moments where we have in our territories, we have ceremonies for the harvests and the crops and the rain, and we have ceremonies that remember of the spirituality of our peoples. This November 1st, you know, it reminds us that the strength of our ancestors, it lives within us. And this very beautiful song that says, health is dignity, health is life without injustice, and to have our own heart and a community that is united.
Nos recuerda que tenemos saberes y conocimientos que se han construido en un territorio que resguardan la vida históricamente milenaria para nuestros pueblos. Por eso estamos avanzando en superar las relaciones de dominación económica capitalista. Estamos avanzando más bien en lugar de ese paradigma de consumismo, en ese paradigma de mercantilización, de tratar a la salud como una mercadería. Más bien en devolver a la salud ese sentido.
And then we need to give health this sense of care and love and reciprocity and solidarity. And so we denounce the commoditization of health. And even when we talk about universal health coverage, we still need to be careful when we talk about that. What coverage do we want if this coverage is going to privatize the services? So we fight for the systems, the universal systems that are public and free for health. And that's why we're also moving forward with the dialogue of, from social justice. But social justice has to happen also with the epistemic justice, that the academia should stop being racist and should stop belittling the ancestral knowledge. Diversity makes us grow, and we have seen this during this wonderful summit, that we are diverse, and this diversity has answers. And cultural diversity and the diversity of knowledge and the diversity of our peoples, they protect biodiversity. So we are talking about going back to love and tender and protection and solidarity. It is time that we talk, that we open up this dialogue. In Bolivia, we have Law 459 of traditional ancestral medicine, and for us, it represents the historical fight to defend our sacred areas and ancestral, and because we are alive thanks to this. These documents are important. During COVID, we compiled a lot of these by doing interviews, and we have now these testimonies and how our peoples were protected by our knowledge. And so we have the Shipibo Conibo people in Peru, and this also reflects this. Is one of the many cases, but this is just an example because there's many Amazonic peoples that in Bolivia and in many other places of our continent, they have responded with medicinal plants, with ceremonies, sacred ceremonies, going hand and knocking on every door. But the Shipibo Conibo people in Peru with sacred songs and Icarus, so that they can give life to your hearts, because that is the strength of spirituality of our people. And as a midwife, also, we are in a moment where the collective care, where love, reciprocity, and tenderness are giving birth. And they have the caregivers, the community of caregivers. As a high-level commissioner of the Americas, we have the report of the High-Level Commission, Alma Ata, 40 years of Alma Ata. We have been working for 40 years, and after 40 years of the Declaration of Alma Ata, we have been doing this. In 1978 was already there for the Alma Ata Declaration, and we have also been able to position the health of the ecosystems, the health of the Mother Earth. And so if we have clean water, clean air, and healthy food, we have the health of Mother Earth, we are going to be healthy as well. And so part of this network is, we have been working with our brothers and sisters for the network of the Americas and traditional medicine and in complementary health, and that's how we call ourselves. And so for anybody who would like to investigate, this is in this network, we have the public sector, the private sector, we have researchers, universities, and different research centers, ministries of health. It is a very broad network throughout the continent, and it gathers and compiles information about the evidence that we need this health systems. And so here, my participation in the World Summit of Traditional Medicine in Guinarat, Guinadar. Guinarat Dinagar is the land of Mahatma Gandhi. In Gujarat, on August 17th and 18th, I had the honor of representing our continent during the plenary session, along with the General Director of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. We have participated in this summit. We have taken all of these progresses made, but also taking and talking about the proposals that need to be heard. And while it is true that we heard the declaration of the G20, the World Summit of Traditional Medicine of the WHO has been co-sponsored by India, because India is chairing the G20 now. And so in this declaration of the G20, we see that there is now recognition of traditional medicine and health, so that they can be part of the systems. It is necessary to make this progress more visible. But also, we need to keep on working that it is okay for us to be recognized, but we know that it is a right, because racism is still there, social injustice is still there, and structural racism, systematic racism is still present. And so we need to keep on presenting evidence, presenting documents, and being there on behalf of our people so that we are part of the health systems. While it is true, India and China, they have a big, powerful ministries with a lot of resources to promote traditional medicine that is of their own. But a lot of countries in the world, the over 190 countries that exist and that are part of the World Health Organization, 140 are already working. We are already working with ancestral medicine. So we need, when we see the challenges, it is a huge accomplishment, of course, that the WHO has recognized, and they have offices for many, many years, offices of traditional ancestral medicine. But with the World Summit now, actually in 2021, the in Gujarat, in India, the office was open. They have their WHO office on traditional medicine, and that's why we had to go to Gujarat, because they already have a venue there. They have an office so that we can articulate our work and we can strengthen research and innovation to strengthen our ancestral knowledge. And we are from the South, and so the global South, I think, are more aligned. The African and Asian countries, we have shared the plenary session with Bhutan, Nepal, India, countries that have already strengthened their work on ancestral knowledge. And so they have resources, they have economic resources, they have the support, they have science and technology. And it is important, really important, to work on these. We see that there medicine that comes hand in hand with the industrial, medical, and pharmaceutical complex, and even with I think this medicine has to be rethought. It cannot exist. It is only commoditized, but we need to strengthen the other type of medicine, that medicine that comes from ancestral medicine, that comes from the world that recognizes the, collaboration, reciprocity, and profound love that we have for life. And so we need to strengthen this knowledge, but especially beyond the institutions and beyond what will be achieved, a current challenge and a current opportunity is the organization of the popular power to have an effective health system. We have shown as organized communities for many, many months during the COVID pandemic, when the governments were not able to respond and when the governments could not really do something. However, organized communities, indigenous peoples, and different communities that defend the rights, you have organized to bring help with food and traditional medicine. And that's why the communities are the ones that are going to sustain these processes. And with the community means, we have translated this into our languages. We have explained what was happening, and I am just using this as an example because it is important and necessary to strengthen the community work, because it is them that fight and defend for their rights. And just as an example, we have Dr. Ernesto Guevara, who told us that the first disease that we need to eradicate is social injustice. And precisely this week, a few days ago, we remembered the 50th anniversary of Salvador Allende. And I'll just using this as an example because these are doctors that felt profoundly for their country, and they found the means to fight for dignity. And so we have been promoting all of these proposals, and now we also remember Dr. Salvador Allende, who reminds us that with social justice and dignity, we can build health. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how many proposals we have. We saw Alma Ata. It's been 40 years and we still don't have health for all. It's been more than 40 years, and we are not going to wait for another 40 years so that the declaration of the India, the Gujarat Declaration, now it's our job. It is our job to move them forward. And part of the final reflections that I want to do is that community life, agroecology, and food is medicine, medicine is food, food is medicine. And I say 3 times because if we don't have a healthy food, clean water, clean air, nobody will be healthy. The capitalist commoditized system has poisoned rivers, it has poisoned food. We have cities, entire cities that have been poisoned. Nobody will be healthy like that. If the earth is healthy, we will be healthy as well. And that's why she is our healer. We are the change that we want to be. And Mahatma Gandhi said that. And that is part of history, and that is part of the historic job that we all have. Everybody who's listening to me, we all come from Mother Earth ancestrally. Some, people say, no, I am not part of that. My grandparents were from these people or this town, or, but I'm not, I don't belong that, but the memory is alive. Let's recover our clothes, our outfits, our music, our chanting, and our medicine. Let's recover our ceremonies, even though there's still racism and hatred speeches and discourse. We are alive because we were able to find the beauty and the Latin American Association of Medicine, Social Medicine,
que defendemos que nuestra salud es un derecho humano. Vamos a tener nuestra quinta Asamblea Mundial de Salud de los Pueblos, que se hace cada 5 años, ahora en abril del 2024 en Mar del Plata, Argentina. Ahí nos vamos a encontrar para seguir adelante con estas propuestas. Así que si bien hemos participado de la Cumbre Mundial de Medicina Tradicional en Gujarat, India, lo que nos toca es bajar a...
We need to start now walking the walk. We don't need to just having words, and that proposals and policies actually trickle down to people, and especially the advocacy of life and defending life. We need to look for we need to care for water and plants and systems and ecosystems, and that's why we cannot work individually as a health sector. We need to work this in an intersectorial way, but also we need brave people that will defend the rights. So with this representation of Tiwanaku, over 10,000 years, we have had so much. It's not just folklore, it's not a costume. It is the memory of humanity, and humanity in crisis. We have wars and health crisis and hunger and water crisis. We need to go back to this. We need to go back to clarity and sharing food and clean water and respecting the sacred places and looking after biodiversity, because otherwise the next generation won't have anything. And that is terrible with illegal mining, and that is terrible with the exploitation of the territories. It is terrible with capitalism and global north that is still imposing their corporations. So now we need to remember that we have come to be the carers of this. We need to think about this. It has to be taken care of for the next generation. They deserve to flourish. They deserve to grow. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, querida Vivi.
Thank you very much, dear Vivi.
Comentarios
Well, we've
maravillosos,
gotten so many wonderful comments of the participants, questions, and so thank you very much for emphasizing that health is a human right, that Bolivia has a wonderful experience, and you were talking about healing with uh, ancestral knowledge.
comunidades que resguardan el territorio, guardianes de la biodiversidad. Todavía muchos desafíos.
There's a lot of challenges still. We need to decolonize. We need to look at interculturality, and we need to talk about ancestral knowledge and epistemic justice, and to strengthen the recognition of the ancestral knowledge, the organization of the popular power. So the first disease that we have to eradicate is social injustice. We need for proposals to trickle down to people. That's what you said. Thank you very much, Dr. Dear Vivi. So now, right now, we are going to thank everyone who is logged in from the ministries of health and the academia and different entities and social entities from Argentina, Belize, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Cuba, Ecuador, Spain, Guatemala, England, Mexico, Nicaragua, Paraguay, Peru, Uruguay, Venezuela, among others. Countries we have gotten a lot of greetings and congratulations. Thank you very much. So in order to start this dialogue, I would like to ask you, Cristina and Vivi, to turn on your cameras. So during the development of this, first of all, you have gotten a lot of congratulations. And then also they have talked about having some comments, and I would like to read some of the questions. What are the measures that are being taken to prevent the overexploitation of resources of traditional medicine? That's one of the first questions. And I would like to add also, if this is part of the declaration, if you talked about this, I would imagine that you talked about the need of protecting biodiversity, of course, and medicinal plants. But, can you talk about this? And then also, you're talking about the need and the importance of participation of the organizations, and what are the suggestions? What do you propose? How to strengthen the participation of people thinking about the summit and the challenges that we have in our organizations? And then the third question, I don't know if I asked these questions too fast, but about the opportunities and the declaration of the first summit, we would like that thinking about anybody who is logged in to this webinar, or that maybe they will look at it because it is always going to be posted. What would be the message that you leave the decision makers, government authorities, thinking about this? And then at the same time,
que están viendo el webinar. Adelante, por favor.
Como antes empecé yo.
So I would like to invite Vivi to start because I started before, so if it's okay with her. Thank you, Chris. And yes, actually, we see, we salute this new proposal coming. So the questions that are being asked when we talk about overexploitation of medicinal plants, we are talking about all of this whole system, capitalist, commoditized system, the industry of natural medicine, what they call natural medicine, and that, where you have the essential oils and you have, different practices. This is $1 million industry. And so again, I say, that's why I need to go back to say that health is a human right, that the knowledge of our people are for the people and not for the market, because when they start thinking about this, market based approach, they don't really control themselves. And so now they are being predators, like hickory in Mexico and ayahuasca in the Amazonic region. So what are we talking about? We need again to overcome this capitalist and commoditized way of thinking. So when I'm talking about health, and health is a human right, it has to be thought like that, as a human right, not as a commodity. And this goes for commercial and for traditional medicine and for modern medicine. If capitalism is wise, of course they sell this trips to indigenous peoples and exploiting them. And so overexploitation is, of course, an issue. And single crops, like any single crop, is terrible. And that's why we're talking about agriculture, and we say that we need to go back to agroecology and to diversity and cultural diversity. Otherwise, with good intentions, we're going to again go back to this issue. And that's why when I talked about the Kayawayas and how the indigenous peoples are alive, but then when I talked about chloroquine, that's the quinine, where the chloroquine comes from, nobody recognized it. And the saddest thing is that researchers come and they take the knowledge, they privatize it, and then they turn it into a commodity. And so then it is not even available for the people. And that's why defending this right is important. It's important. And then caring for biodiversity, it is not enough to just have a policy. It is not enough for the institutions. It doesn't matter that the WHO is very big. But that's why I talked about Alma Ata. It's been over 40 years, and Alma Ata is a great declaration. You can look at it. Those of us who are listening to us, Alma Ata 1978 in Kazakhstan. And again, I say that socialism has defended the rights in the world, because fascism, what it does is to take this away from people. And so definitely this has an influence of what's happening. When we had in 2019 the coup, all our rights were completely eradicated. And then there is a document.
Decir las respuestas que podamos dar aquí ahora, si tú no perteneces a una organización, ¿con quiénes te estás organizando? ¿Dónde está tu comunidad de vida? ¿Con quiénes te vas a organizar para cuidarte? Cuando ha venido el tiempo de encierro de COVID, ¿quiénes te han cuidado? ¿De dónde has sacado alimento? ¿Quién te ha llevado medicina? Mucha gente en el mundo se ha
suicidado. A lot of
suicidado.
people in the world has committed suicide because they were alone in the world. And also because the communities are, this is part of capitalism. When you feel isolated, without a safety network and without community, then of course suicide is an option. And it is one of the ways that people found, and they have created the colonial story.
cariño que nos tenemos es parte de lo que se encuentra. Y una de las oportunidades que he visto
And one of the opportunities that I have seen in this summit is that still we preserve this wanting of hugging. There's different networks working together in Europe and Latin America and in the North. And so this was an opportunity to get a hug and to give us strength and to say we are together and we're working together. And this is what I feel also about these webinars that Horas Konu does, the opportunity of listening to ourselves and listen to the people's words and opinions and to looking for solutions. We are not going I don't have the answers really. What we have are proposals that we can do this locally in your and to go back to this territory, and that is the challenge. And so if we wanted to talk about the authorities, it is just to talk about the fact that our lives don't have a price on it, and so when we talk about people contaminating the water and air,
y eso es para todos nosotros. Si no tenemos aire limpio, agua limpia, alimento sano, nadie va a tener salud aunque tenga millones en su cuenta de banco. Y eso no lo hemos valorado suficientemente. Así que nos toca nomás volver a ponernos en nuestra perspectiva histórica. Nunca más se va a repetir una persona como tú, como yo. Somos criaturas únicas. Y ahora estar en este mundo es
and
nuestra
so being in this world right now is an opportunity to leave something good for the next generation. And this is the greatest challenge from whatever we are in a big office or in our community, planting something or fishing something and doing the job that I have to do every day. It is possible when you do it honestly, correctly, and having this profound love for life. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, querida Vivi. Adelante, querida Cris.
Cristina, you have the floor. Well, the advantage of having Vivi go first is that she said it all, and she said it in such an inspiring way that there's really nothing to add. But I will still want to maybe, talk about the measures that were taken to preserve medicinal plants. So definitely we need to think about this.
Del cual nos habló Oliver y el cual presenta muchas oportunidades para ello, mirando hacia un futuro.
And then, we're talking about the future, and we can say that there's not much that has been done so far, but definitely we are doing a new, mapping of legislation that is there to protect the plants. And then there's also groups like IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And it has created specialized material about medicinal plants, and they even presented them in the workshop that we had in Brazil. So on behalf of WHO, of course, it's part of what is being done. But at the headquarters, there's definitely an invitation to the member countries and to the communities to ensure the use and sustainable use of biodiversity. I don't know if I remember all the questions, but I think there was a question about what recommendations we would have for policymakers, right? Or in terms of how to try to move this forward. Well, I think that, besides everything that Vivi said so eloquently, I think we need to also reiterate that we need to remind the member countries, the member states, that there has to be a recognition of the rights of the indigenous peoples and of the ancestral traditional knowledge, and they are not universally, as we know, recognized. So that's a first step, I think. And so just, recognize them as I think that this is also essential and key to involve in this process, in this decision-making processes. And so to giving them a voice and to create these mechanisms and to give them a voice, to involve them in decision-making processes, to ensure that the knowledge that is so valuable is really, really valued and integrated in the strategies at the national and subnational levels. And then also that they ensure that there are legal frameworks to protect the rights of access and of sustainable use of the resources. And so this is a very strong recommendation. Then another one is maybe just going back to what I was saying before, to try to ensure that there is a more parity, to promote, if we want a more equitable collaboration between traditional healers I think this collaboration is important and we need to be more equitable, but this is key. And to recognize the value of both systems, traditional and scientific. Because this recognition can lead to a more complete understanding of medicinal plants and but everything that is used for health and well-being. I would also recommend that these mechanisms are created to ensure complementarity between the different systems, the medical systems, because this complementarity right now, it exists, and we have given a few examples of how they exist, but it is very limited, definitely. And so it can be strengthened. And one of the recommendations that came out of the summit is to ensure a greater complementarity between the different medical systems. And then I would also highlight the importance of education and the transmission of knowledge. And so what does it mean? It means that we need to invest. We need to invest funds on education. We need to invest funds in the transmission of knowledge, which is absolutely essential for the continuity of traditional practices but also to ensure an exchange that is more equitable, or sharing that is more equitable. So this is some of the ideas that I have and some of the recommendations that I would have from now on. But I would also like to emphasize such an important role played by the youth. The youth in terms of getting informed about these knowledge, the role played by the youth and everything that has to do with education, and also disseminating
la importancia de los conocimientos
the importance of traditional knowledge and traditional medicine, and giving it its fair value. And so now we are living in a world that is very connected, and it's digitally connected, and those voices, they have a lot of power. And so using and getting these words together,
yo creo absolutamente esencial moviéndose hacia adelante. Bueno, por ahora lo dejamos ahí.
and so I think we'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Gracias por las magníficas, motivantes, estimulantes respuestas maravillosas. Gracias a todos los y las participantes.
Thank you very much to all the participants. Thank you everyone who participated in this activity and that has been possible thanks to the integration, and thank you to all the questions. Well, we don't have time to answer them all, but we will have them, of course, in our parking lot for future webinars. So now, to close this, I would like to ask dear Cristina and dear Vivi to just give a brief final message. For the final message, I have sacred fire, because we are the result of all of these dreams. Our elders have kept and guarded this. This is what we need to remember. We come from different places. We come from all the colors. It's not that anybody is more or less. We are all children of Mother Earth. We have our indigenous brothers and sisters, and it's been beautiful to find them, but also we need to reivindicate the ancestral root of the
de la humanidad. Y esa raíz ancestral de la humanidad que ahora está buscando por apoyo, que ahora está buscando para que nuestras guaguas, nuestros hijos, nuestras hijas tengan alimento, que nadie tenga que pasar hambre y necesidad por la injusticia, para que nuestra primera medicina siempre venga de nuestro alimento, de nuestra medicina tradicional, de las plantas medicinales, para recordar que tenemos...
And we need to remember that we have all of these thanks to the fact that they have actually done this for us. In Bolivia, we have a lot of materials. They are available on our website. We have a lot of progress in terms of the intercultural national health policy, community health. Really a lot of progress is made. And so with this, I just want to say goodbye and thank you very much. And just like this sacred fire is turned on, we need for us to get organized so that we can find ourselves, like Chris said, for the policies to trickle down to people so that there are resources. We have in Bolivia, we have Law 300 on Mother Earth, and thanks to Bolivia, we have the World Day of Mother Earth. It should not just be a discourse. It should be action. It should be strength and power for the next generation. And we need to remember that we are this, life, that we today can give strength to us, and of course, respect and respectfully, and keep on working. Thank you very much, Berta, for the space. Thank you, Orasconu. Thank you, Chris. And we will find ourselves each other again at some point. And thank each and every one of you. So you don't even have to remember my name, but let's just remember your history and your name. We will all remember. We all come from ancestral roots. Thank you very much.
Cristina.
Es que este mensaje de la
Yeah, it's just this message from Bibi was so wonderful and powerful that I really don't want to mess it up by adding anything. I think it was the perfect way of closing this webinar. So I just want to say thank you everybody, and I just want us to keep on dialoguing and discussing and moving forward, because we still have a lot of work to do. And of course, this is just the beginning of these collaborations. So thank you. So yes, thank you very much for the excellent presentations. Thank you, Oliver. We got a lot of congratulations in our social media. Thank you. And so I will now give the floor to Dr. Maria del Carmen to close this webinar on behalf of the Orasconu. Well, my first few words are of gratefulness, really. Thank you to our excellent presenters, and having shared your ideas, your dreams, and having shown that traditional medicine right now is being more recognized, and having had a world summit. Really, Bibi, Cristina, these are important steps. I think it's a huge step. As Neil Armstrong said, it's a big step for humanity, but we also need to recognize that we still have a lot to do. And one of the priority issues is what at some point was mentioned by Bibi, this issue that we're all unique, we're all different. And we talked about this when we and then again, it's valuable, unique, and when so as Galeano said, there's big fires and small fires. We all have different fires. Now that you talked about fire, but the idea is that we recognize the rights of everyone.
Nuestra conexión con el medio ambiente, nuestra conexión con los otros seres vivos.
And to really be connected to other human beings and live beings, and to be connected to all the ancestral knowledge. None of us can say that they didn't come from someone. At some point I will send you a picture so that you realize how many great grandfathers we need, so that we are here now. And so now we realize that we are all from everywhere. But of course, the Orasconu, we want to keep on working very strongly. And during these webinars, I am very proud, because this is number 189, and we are going to have the number 200 in a few months. And so we always talk about different things. And just like 2 weeks ago, we talked about the latest treatments for leukemia, and on Tuesday we talked about prevention of suicide. And today we are talking about traditional medicine, because we do think and consider, and I take Christina's words here, we consider that we have youth that is eager to know more, and they are eager to accept all types of diversity, and that we hadn't seen this for a while. So even though we are, and I agree with Bibi, of course, there's still a lot of discrimination, and we are definitely better than before. And one of the priority issues has been the strong work of our communities, and the one that we have right now. We have youth that are more open-minded to anything that is happening. So I think that we have a good combination, and I think we need to keep on strengthening knowledge and exchanging experiences, but especially recognizing ourselves as important people and that we have the right to have well-being and to the greatest level of health. I also want to talk about complementarity between Western medicine and traditional medicine, and the need of having standards also. And of course, they do have it, because otherwise they would have not survived for so long. When we talk about traditional medicine, it's medicine that comes from, thousands and thousands of years ago. And so what we want is that, it is not indispensable, but it is definitely good to have a greater recognition, greater scientific recognition of the traditional medicine. I am a pediatrician. I have been maybe 43 years as a doctor, and I have still combined both things. I have always combined both things, because I believe that there are things that have not been able to be explained scientifically, but they are extremely valuable. And this ancestral knowledge, we know that our intervention in COP27, we talked about this, we talked about that. And so, as we believe, we are going to still be, in contact for more partnerships, and that we still have a lot of work to do. And we would like to invite you to the next webinar, which is on September 25th, and the title is Actions for Peace. We need to comply the Sustainable Development Goals, and we're going to have it on September 21st. So we want to commemorate the World Peace Day, and today we talk about our idea to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you very much again. Thank you, Olivier. Thank you, Cristina. Thank you, Vivian. And we will see each other very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bert, and thank you, everyone. And also, thank you, Bertha, and thank you, everyone at Orasconu who make this possible. Thank you very much, and see you soon.